All right, hit the button, so just tell me when you see it.
I just got the little dingy ding.
I got the dingy ding.
You got the dingy ding?
I did get the dingy ding.
All right, just post that in the chat.
There you go.
All right, cool. So, since we are live, if anyone's already tuned in, then welcome. We're going to have a nice little debate once again here on the Mr. Dapperton channel. And with me, I have Liberty Sanity Project, Pragmatic, Shane, and a newcomer, I think, Shiny.
Hi.
And of course, I am your lovely, mostly neutral moderator, Devin, also known as the Major League Ginger. And with all that out of the way, I guess whoever wants to kick this thing off, go right ahead.
I support genociding baby.
Okay, well, that's not an ethical.
Kick this thing off.
Well, no.
Abortion is not ethical because it's murder. And murder violates the consistency of recognizing your own will and not recognizing another person's will, which is their authority over their own person.
I would say I'm not a libertarian, so I wouldn't quite argue it like that. But what I would say is that human life is of the greatest value. Yeah.
So that's not ethics. So even though you're on my side, I'm going to tell you we're sticking to ethics because that's what the topic of the debate is.
This is an ethical claim. It's like there's a metaphysical case to be made for the fact that the value of human life is something transcendent and not simply a matter of an opinion. Value statements aren't just opinions. They can be ethically, you can draw from a metaphysical reality to make that judgment. And so, because we are strictly religious in the sense that we are creatures of God and he's made us the chief among material creatures. And so our lives have unique value, which is why to prematurely end a life in any form is always murder. In this case, abortion is just the murder of children who haven't even been birthed yet.
I will say
Shane?
that's not.
Yeah. So I guess I'm
or
on
I
the
can
other
do,
side.
You want to go? Who wants to go?
Oh, no, I can do it. Yeah. So I'm on the other side of them. I am pro-choice, but not from a standpoint of personal morality. I am not going to say that the fetus is not a life and abortion is not murder, although I would say killing because not all killing is murder. But I would say that we all have the right to life. Deontological ethics shows us that that's because we have our right to self. But under the consistency principle, the baby doesn't have any more right to self than the woman does. That should be equal from a pure standpoint of ethics. And when the baby is inside the mother's body, she should still have autonomy over her body. And so if she decides that she doesn't want someone in her property, she can evict them from her property. I mean, I kind of see it like, if someone's over in your house, you can kick them out of your house. If there's a blizzard outside and you're the only house for miles, and kicking them out is going to almost certainly mean their death, then I would say you're an asshole. But I think most people would say, well, yeah, but it is your house. You have the right to kick people out.
First of all, we're not talking about removing someone from the premises. We're talking about harming the person on the premises. Secondly, in order to violate someone...
Can I clarify on that?
No, let me finish.
Okay, finish.
In order to violate, you have to do an action. A passive cannot be a violation. The baby has not done any action. Therefore, the baby has not violated. The violation comes with an action, in which an abortion is an action. An unconscious person who has not arrived on your premises of their own volition is not trespassing, because trespassing is an action.
Yeah, that's a good point. The baby didn't do anything. It was just kind of there. So it itself did not violate any rights. And to kind of clarify on the whole allegory of abortion, like just being, removing someone from your property, it's not. It's actually, it's like if you shot them in the head first and then threw them off your property would be essentially what it's doing.
Well, then
you're killing the thing in the womb.
Well, then let me posit this at you because I think this is actually where I am on the subject. Would you say that um, if she, if the baby is at a point where it can survive outside the womb, then I would say, it would be murder to kill it specifically, but she should at least have the right to, have labor induced or whatever, and then
That's also
set up for
inconsistent,
adoption.
Shane.
How is that inconsistent?
That's inconsistent because we do not recognize the right to self-ownership based off someone's ability to be self-sufficient.
Well, how do if you're not self-sufficient, how do you justify saying that someone else has to provide for me?
I'm not saying you have to provide. The only thing she has to do is she has not to harm the baby. I'm not making her
But
do
no,
anything
she's
else.
having to provide for the baby. She's having
Yeah,
to
by the
eat
very
every-
nature of carrying that baby to term, she is being forced to provide that.
She's not being forced. You are arguing that nature is coercive.
Nature can be coercive.
Nature
I mean,
cannot be
hurricanes.
coercive. Nature is
Hurricanes,
passive.
hurricanes cause a lot of damage. Earthquakes cause a lot of damage.
It's not coercive. It's nature. It's passive.
Attribute that you can't say, you can't sue nature when something destroys your house. It's not a thing that's acting with volition of its own will and things like that. It's literally like the definition of shit happens, and it's literally just things happening to you. So you can't attribute will to that, and therefore you can't attribute wrongful action to that.
Exactly.
But do you have the right to defend yourself from it?
Having the right to defend yourself from something is not the same thing as it taking action.
No, that's the whole point. Your act of defense. Your act of defense is an action that you are defending, and so if you take steps to stop nature from harming you, the whole point of coercion is to say when that's acceptable and when it isn't.
No, you have a right to defend yourself from a hurricane because a hurricane does not have rights. It does not have a will, so you can defend yourself in any way you like. However, a child does have a will. Neurons start being developed at 6 weeks in, which is much before most people detect the baby. Therefore, we can attribute neurons to the ability to make decisions. And the ability to make decisions for yourself is where we get our concept of will from. And will is basically how we know that someone has the ultimate and absolute authority over their own body, which to violate another's will or their body is to violate the consistency of recognizing that you have your own will.
Doesn't a woman have her own will?
Yes, she has her own will. That doesn't give her the right to violate another's will. That's the entire point. Thank you.
So the issue is, though, if you're forcing her to carry a
no one is forcing. This is nature. Nature is not force. It's not coercive.
So, well, sure it is. Sure it is.
No, it's not.
If she can't evacuate the
coercive
pregnancy, it's force.
Requires will and action against. A hurricane does not act as it does not have will. So no, nature is not coercive.
Okay, so regardless, if we're saying that a woman cannot exercise will to vacate a pregnancy, we are saying that her will to her own body is null and.
No, we're not saying that because it's not simply the right to her body. It's not. First off, again, it's nature. She's not being coerced, so she doesn't have the right to defend against anything. So there's nothing being violated by simply carrying the pregnancy. It's essentially like saying,
the right to her bodily autonomy. That's a natural right as well.
But the baby also has bodily autonomy. You're not talking about removing the baby. We're talking about killing
bodily
the baby.
autonomy. That would be like saying, having to breathe air violates bodily autonomy. Natural processes don't violate bodily autonomy. They're just as much a part of it.
I can choose to hold my breath, just as a woman should be able to choose to vacate a pregnancy.
You can choose to hold your breath, sure. But again, that doesn't violate your bodily autonomy either. In the same way, you having to breathe air doesn't violate it either, because they're all natural processes. Pregnancy is a completely natural process.
If she wanted
does
to
not
kill
violate
herself,
bodily autonomy in any way.
If she wanted to kill herself and that by a process of acting against herself harmed her baby, fine, fair enough. But for her to make a deliberate action against the baby, that is a violation of the baby. She's not acting against herself. She's not acting in her bodily autonomy. She's using her will to violate another's will, and it's inconsistent with the recognition of your own will.
Here's a question. Why does a baby have a right to her body?
Not a
We're
right
not
to her
saying
body.
the baby has a right to the body. You're not listening.
You actually are,
does.
yes.
You are
No, I'm
arguing that
not.
she does. So the argument is that if you vacate the pregnancy through an abortion,
I
the
didn't
baby's going to
say
die.
she
This is
has
true.
to keep the
Hang
baby.
on.
I said
Good Lord.
you
I have to let you
harm the
finish. You don't have to let
Oh,
me
wait. Calm down. Let
But
him
you're
finish.
straw manning my position. I have not said that the baby has a right to be there. I'm saying that the baby has not violated her in being there, and that she has no right to harm the baby.
Okay,
We're
so
not
let's
talking about removal.
let's go real simple. Does the baby have a right to the woman's body?
I didn't say she did, or it
Why
did.
can't you just answer it? Does the baby have a right to a woman's body?
I have answered it.
Okay, can you answer it now? Is it yes or no? Does a baby have a right to a woman's body?
No, the baby does not have an inherent right to her body, and I haven't argued that.
Okay, so if a baby does not have a right to a woman's body, and a baby is using a woman's body for sustenance, for growth, what have you, why is it unethical for a
using it? The baby does not have the ability to do that. It's passive.
Okay, passive use is a thing. The baby is passively
use is
using
not
a woman.
violation.
Shiny, try to let him finish before you interject.
Okay, so I would argue that passive use is a thing, and that by being by a baby gestating in a woman's body, a baby is passively using that body for its own growth. It is taking the nutrients that woman requires for survival. It is leeching off that woman as a parasite.
You cannot
Shiny, hold on.
passively
Let him
take.
finish. Let him finish.
I'm not
Okay,
sure
go.
we're using the word passive properly here. The baby is connected up to the mother. The baby is taking blood and nutrients from the mother in biological processes. The baby is taking up space inside the mother. All of those, from a purely logical standpoint, are active, not passive.
No, they are not. Existing is not active.
Calm down for a second. Hold on. Are actions being taken, but if you're looking again, we're talking about ethics here. Itself taking those actions as if it's willfully doing those things, that just happens to be the state in which all life emerges. So when we say passive, we're not saying, the very act of taking nutrients from the mother is itself not an action. It obviously is, but the baby in not being and not having volition is just a passive recipient of the natural actions of biology.
But when I asked you about natural forces, you said that was exactly what made it irrelevant, because nature doesn't have a will. If nature doesn't have a will and the baby doesn't have the will, and neither one of them is doing it as an act of will, then what's the difference?
Has a will, but the baby is not using the will. That's the difference.
It's like there can be an active action being taken, but that again, like to try to tie it back in
by the baby.
It's not coercive either, because again, nature is not coercive.
If nature is not coercive, then it is unethical for you to defend yourself against it, because you can only defend yourselves against acts of coercion.
No,
so you're saying that we don't get to use antibiotics. What you're saying essentially is we don't get to use antibiotics because nature is not coercive. That's ridiculous.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Shane. That's a complete straw man.
Yeah, that is a straw man.
That's what he just said.
No, it is not what he said, Shane. That is not what
a will that we can. Nature does not have a will that we can violate, and so defending against it is essentially just a neutral act. It's just what humanity has always done, which is built up fortifications against nature and our surroundings and alter them to our advantage, which is fine because nature is it's an unconscious actor, or it's not even a thing. So we can act against it all we want without violating anything.
So just quick, does the baby have a will, or does the baby not have?
The baby has a will, but these functions are not of the baby's will.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So what is the baby's will then?
Doesn't really it has a will, it's just not using it. It doesn't. We don't learn how to use our will properly for when the
baby has started developing neurons before detection.
When the baby kicks the woman in the womb, is that an act of will?
You could probably chalk that up to just stimuli response. I don't like the baby isn't in its mind like using its inner voice going, "Hey, I'm gonna kick my mom in the gut" or something. So no, it is not an act of the baby's will.
But the baby has the potential of will because we know these neurons have developed.
Okay, then let's use it
let's
use it in a slightly different scenario. Let's say you have someone who is insane, unable to appreciate the nature and consequences of his actions. He has a will, but he's not acting out of will, and he's trying to kill you. Do you have the right to kill him?
What?
No, no, there would be a distinction there because he is acting out of will. His will has been corrupted is the problem by some sort of external force.
He is not acting out of will because he is acting out of insanity. He is not, he might not
Insanity
even
is still
understand.
will.
He might not
Yes.
know. He might not even understand that he's taking this action.
You don't have to understand that you're taking the action to take the action. The difference is it is still his will doing it, even if he doesn't understand what he's doing.
Okay, to just boil this up, your argument is that it's unethical to abort a baby because the baby does not have a will in this
No, it does
situation,
have a
right? His
will.
will is being acted upon.
Just to
Okay.
I'll clarify for you.
Okay,
just to
let me
make it clear.
clarify before you interrupt me again, Shiny, please. What I'm saying is it doesn't have a will in taking from the mother and growing in the mother in any of this.
I don't think it's quite right to say it doesn't have a will. It's just not utilizing its will because it can't.
It doesn't.
Utilize its will. Like it's not. We haven't developed enough yet along like our process to be in full contact.
Just like the insane person isn't capable of acting in his will.
No, the insane person is capable of acting on the will. The insane whims
No,
that they
because
chose
if he
to
were, he
act
wouldn't be
out
insane.
are their wills.
If he were, he wouldn't be insane.
No, well, again, I think
Like-
Shiny. I think a better clarification would be simply that his will has been corrupted, or that there's been something along the process that has corrupted it. It's still action. It's Shane. You're a fan of Mises. I know. I'm sure, right? You know, this is.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a little book he wrote, well, not really a book. It was a collection of essays and lectures he did. I think it was called Money Method in the Market Process. He actually makes what I think is a very cogent distinction between rationality and logic. And what he says is that, and you know, this is the basis for praxeology, as I'm sure you know, all humans act rationally, in that they all act with an intended goal in mind. However, he goes on to make the distinction that not all humans act logically, in that we don't all know what's best for meeting the goals that we've rationally, and so we may act illogically but not irrationally, according to Mises. And so where I'd say the will is the rational part. So the will is what decides our rationality, but the logic part of like how we get to that goal is what's been corrupted. So the insane person still has his will and is still using it actively. He's still rational, but what's been corrupted is the logical faculties of him, and so he's not able to act out that will properly. But he is still using his will.
He is not rational in the Misesian form of the word, because he had rational. He had as being a purposeful.
How is it possible to act without purpose?
You ever heard of sleepwalkers?
Well,
how basic do I have to get here?
No, that's not acting. That is acting without will, but that's different from insanity. That's completely different from insanity.
No, that's pretty much it. You're a lot of times someone will do something, have no intention of doing it, even have no memory of doing it, are horrified to learn that they did do it. You know what you're saying just flies against.
Now you're getting into like
the entire
personality
disorder.
insanity.
No, not even that. It could just be, some kind of psychotic break or something.
Okay, but that person is still acting on some unconscious sort of will or some goal that they had, which they've then actualized in just a form that they wouldn't have otherwise chosen. There's still will there. There's still acting with purpose. And I'd actually like to just walk real quick, Shiny. I'd just like to walk back what I said about the sleepwalking. I would say that person is acting with some sort of will. Again, the sleepwalker still has will, but again, it's like a part of them that might say to do it logically while they're awake is what's been I don't know if it's corrupted is the right word in that sense, but something's up with it. So I think there can be that separation of again, rationality, which I would call will, and the logic, which is how we act it out.
I would love for you to find a psychiatric source backing you up onto that. I would love to read that.
Well, we're talking about separation of like philosophical concepts that can't be simply reducible
We're talking
to
about the
material
nature of
interactions.
insanity. No, we're talking about the nature of insanity and what
We're
it
talking
is.
about will and rationality and our logic as human faculties, and more broadly, you could call it consciousness, which is not a state of human being that can be reduced to any frame of the material workings. Today,
But you just said
you
just said it applied to sleepwalkers, and sleepwalkers are unconscious.
consciousness in the larger philosophical sense of as we are conscious beings who act with purpose and volition, not consciousness as in awake and walking around.
Exactly.
I think that's somewhat of a pedantic point, Shane. Like I think you can separate the idea of consciousness as in the unique faculty which separates man from animals, and the difference between humans acting consciously with will and unconsciously because like their other faculties have been distorted.
It is
Are you talking?
Liberal,
I see your
are
thing
you
going.
trying
I
to
just
say
can't hear
something?
you. Sorry, go
Liberal,
ahead.
yeah, liberal, you're lighting up there. Are you trying to say something?
Seems he's having some technical difficulties.
Oh yeah, LSP, you're having some technical difficulties. I was gonna say you've been lighting up for a while. Maybe drop and rejoin or something.
Anyways, sleepwalkers are definitely acting on will, because if they weren't, they wouldn't be able to act. To move a muscle, the brain has to send a signal to command it.
Okay, can I talk now? Because I'm suffering from technical.
Oh, okay.
By the way, LSP, you a lot of times your like sentence completely cuts out. I don't know if that's because of your voice like sensitivity that you have
My
in your mic.
internet
Or...
is Mexican shit.
Okay, there you go. I'm here. We're hearing you now.
All right. So what I'm going to argue is that the will of the child, or the will of the fetus, is completely irrelevant to the discussion, because I wouldn't consider the fetus a person in much the same way I wouldn't consider a parasite a person. I assume you guys wouldn't argue that it's unethical to kill a parasite, would you?
Well, parasites don't have whole organ systems within the human body developed to organizing them, so it's not. So it's most assuredly not a parasite.
Well, neither do some fetuses, right? Like they're in the process of developing.
Right? Whoa, Shiny, let LSP finish. He hasn't talked in a while.
In like 5 minutes, dude.
Well, so has
I'll let you talk after LSP goes.
Okay, so the argument was that parasites don't have developed organ systems. I agree. Neither do fetuses. Right. So if we're going to argue that the what predicates a person to being a person is the development of fetuses, then there's a time period where abortion.
Okay. I think I misspoke. I think you misunderstood what I was saying. What I meant is that parasites, when they enter the human body, they don't have within their hosts, they do not have organ systems developed to catering to the parasite itself. Not that the parasite doesn't have certain organs. I think that's where the confusion was, because like the fetus has the whole, that has the uterus and everything developed to ensuring its growth, whereas no part of the human body is designed to maintain any sort of external parasite. So that's what I meant by organs catering to the fetus. Not that the fetus itself lacked organs, but that the host, that the person catering to the fetus has organs to cater to the fetus.
Anyways, organs.
Wait, hold on. I think LSP is trying to talk. You're having internet troubles again, my guy. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't see what organs have to do with anything.
Thank you, Shane.
Well, I was just LSP. You can't talk again.
Personhood, as far as whether or not like you can be violated and it's an ethical violation, is will and the right to self-ownership. Organs have absolutely nothing to do with it.
Your right to self-ownership extends to yourself. It does not extend to the person or property of others.
Which I haven't claimed it does.
Well, but if the baby is in her property, to wit her womb, You're saying that she doesn't get to evict it from her
I have
property.
never said that, Shane. I keep saying eviction is completely acceptable, and you do not listen to me.
Okay.
You have strawmanned me on this over and over, Shane. I have said several times, eviction is different than abortion. Abortion is intentional harm.
If you evict a fetus before the point where it can survive outside the womb, its death is inevitable, just like in
Yes,
my
it is, which
just
makes
like in my example with the blizzard. But
which
Okay.
makes
Okay,
that
but hold on. I think we're missing the more important distinction,
I'm
which was
gonna kill myself. Okay,
Do that. All
Shiny.
right.
When does a fetus develop will or self-ownership?
a fetus develops neurons before week 6.
Okay, so the presence of neurons defines will or self-ownership?
Neurons are what give an entity the ability to make decisions, and an ability to make decisions is what we define as having a will. Now, whether or not the baby is actively able to make those decisions yet isn't what's relevant. It's the possibility that they could. They have the ability at that point because they have neurons.
well,
I would just like to-
a nematode has neurons and decision-making abilities.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this
Very
isn't the
rudimentary,
personhood
but
that would
it's still
extend to
there.
anything.
I
So
mean,
this isn't a good definition of personhood because it could be expanded to anything, other animals, parasites, what have
Yes.
you.
Well, yes,
Yes,
I'd like
it-
to
and
make
it
I'd
should.
like to make a point of clarification, if I may, just to distinguish my case a bit, because I think we all have will from the moment in which we are conceived, because again, these things like will and consciousness, which we're talking about, are really supernatural faculties which aren't boiled down to the mere interactions of neurons and stuff. They're things, if you want to take a certain metaphysical approach, you could say they're properties which are transcendent because they are greater than the sum of the parts. And so what you have is you can't really identify will or consciousness within a single cluster of neurons or cells or anything like that. And it's all simply a matter of development. If you wanted to put it in a more Platonic sense, because the last case is more Aristotelian, I suppose, you could say that we all have will. It's simply a matter of growing to develop and communicate with it better as we do. We're sort of like radios in that sense, in that we all have will, which is this faculty, but we all need to sort of develop into more complete beings before.
So, then if you have
we're
to
fully-
develop it, you don't have it. That, I mean, my argument would be if you have will, but you
Just
can't
because-
exercise it, then it doesn't exist.
Well, no, just because you can't fully act something out willfully at first doesn't mean it's not there. Again, like
Will is the ability
a broken
to make
radio
decisions.
is still a radio. It's just broken. It doesn't. And in this case, an undeveloped human is still a human. And so, because again, at least I'm making the case that human beings are special, morally speaking, based on certain metaphysical presuppositions.
To take your analogy about a broken radio still being a radio, I would argue that a radio is only a radio when it functions. It only works as a radio when it can play music for me. If it doesn't play anything, then it's just a paperweight. And I would say will's the same thing. If it doesn't function as a person with will, ergo you can't exercise it, then it's not there. You're not a person by that.
No, it still has. Okay, this is good. I like where this debate is going. Well, no, it still has the form of a radio. It still had the use of and design of a radio, no matter how well it was able to complete that function. The completion of the function isn't the determinant of whether or not it's of that form. Like, we can have a badly drawn triangle or square that's still a triangle or square because it's still of the form of a triangle or square, no matter how inaccurately it represents that form. And the form of humanity comes with certain moral considerations, one of those being the right to life. So even if it's not really the best representation of the form of humanity, it's still a human, which still entails it to those rights.
Well, I agree, but I only agree at a certain point. Like, function is necessary here. If you've got a square that functions as a triangle, I'm sorry, it's not a square anymore. It's a triangle. If you've got will, but it is unfunctioning, then you don't have will. It's the same.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's the thing. At that point, if you can't have a square that functions as a triangle because. Yeah, sure, Shiny. Go ahead. I'll let you interject.
The child is still in ownership of a functioning will. Impulses are being sent through those neurons, regardless of how basic they are or whether we can interpret them yet.
Would
Okay,
you
so let me
consider
ask you
impulses
this.
to be will?
Yes.
All right, let me ask you this.
Just as a point of clarification, I wouldn't, but I'll let you talk to Shiny for a bit because I've been cutting her off.
Well, this is
Change
actually
first.
for both of you. My question is, what about very early forms of abortion like RU 486, where it doesn't, I believe it may even do it before you get cell differentiation, but certainly before you start developing distinct organs and neurons and things like that. At that very early stage, what's your opinion on it?
Wait, what? At what point? What time period are we talking?
Very, very early.
Because
I
at
think it can only
16
work like a few days after implantation or something like that.
Well, just to clarify my case, I would say again, it's not dependent upon any point. Like I'm against things like Plan B and stuff like that, simply because again, I believe at it's still the form of a human being, which entails certain
Oh.
moral considerations regardless of functions. Yeah, me and
Well,
you, Shiny, are going to
hold
differ a
on.
little bit here, and
the
that's
morning
fine.
after pill, usually, like depending on which one, doesn't actually affect implantation. It just prevents ovulation by delaying it.
Right. It's really just like a massive dose of birth control pills.
Yeah, but it doesn't
well-
actually kill anything. It just prevents implantation by
Okay, if that's the
preventing
case, then
ovulation.
okay, yeah. So long as it's not, if it's those type of pills, then that's birth control, and I would make a separate case against that in a different debate. But being that it's not abortion, then yes, I would say something like that is better than the pills that kill the child after it's been conceived. But just to clarify my point again, it's not dependent upon a certain period of time.
So
The second-
you are against killing a fertilized egg then?
Yes, you are a human from the moment of conception. You're just simply developing at different rates, and it's still the form of a human, no matter how developed it is, and so it's still entitled to those moral considerations.
The same ones as an actual fully living, breathing.
Yeah,
So then, can I ask a hypothetical? So real quick.
sure. I have a feeling I know what this is, but sure.
Well, okay. Well, you might. So let's assume that there's a building on fire, and in one room is a living, breathing baby who you can rescue, and then another room is a fetus developing in vitro. Who do you say?
That's irrelevant. That's pragmatic.
Hold on, I'll answer this question because
That's directly relevant to whether or not a fetus is a person. That's
No,
what he
it
was
isn't.
answering.
no, hold on.
You're-
Sure, it
no,
is.
no, no, no.
If you would,
No,
I'll answer
it's
the
not
question. I can
valid.
answer this one.
if you think that they are both a person, your decision shouldn't be. You have to justify your decision.
No. People can easily choose between one human life and another human life, or even neither human life. That doesn't change its classification as a person. That is based on your preference. For example, I could ask you, I wouldn't do this, would you save a Mexican child or a black child? And if someone's racist towards black people, they'll choose the Mexican child. That doesn't make the black person not a person. That's a stupid example.
Okay, that's a good
But
point.
I'm
That's a
saying
fairly good
in
point. But just
practice,
to answer
that's
the
actually-
question.
Yeah, but in practice, that's actually very well. I'm sorry.
No, it has nothing to do with ethics.
Okay, well, hold on.
Or
I'll just answer the
classification.
question. View. I would probably save whichever was most convenient, because I don't believe, we have this sort of trolley problem idea that we believe, lives are worth more. Like, a version of this question was put to me not too long ago on Twitter. Like, would you try to save like the 10 eggs that were fertilized in vitro or the one living baby, which is more of a trolley-esque kind of problem. And in reality, like, I'm not utilitarian like that. Like, you can't say a million lives, in my opinion, are more valuable than just one life. I don't think that type of math works with human lives. And so I would just say that I would save whichever I was, or as many as I were able to. And to clarify, I probably think saving the child would be easier than carrying out a couple of petri dishes or something like that. And also, I'm kind of biased because I don't believe in vitro, so I would probably save the child. But to Shiny's point, also,
hang on. Why don't you believe in vitro?
It's irrelevant.
No,
Yeah,
this is again relevant to whether or not you consider a fetus a person, right? It's a person no matter where it is.
Okay, yeah, the disagreement isn't in the fact that it's a person. The disagreement is in the methodology, which I view as unnatural. But again, that's a separate conversation along with like birth control. So I'll just leave it at that. But it's still a person. It's just the method of conception is personally distasteful to me, is all.
If I may interject just real quick, sorry, they're pragmatic. We have 2 super chats, and then it would be unfair not to read them for these kind people who gave Dapperton some money. So the first one is from Jim Jesus 2, The Quickening, saying, peacefully sunset all of the sleepwalkers. And that was for $2. And then we have $5 from Excel saying, all hail Blue Whale. The teachings of Al-Hust El-Zim will end this argument and guide you to entanglement. Okay, then.
All right. I like to see Whale Gang out there representing. Whale Gang lock in.
So can we go?
I will say, Pragmatic's personal value of whether he'd save a child or an in vitro entity is not
relevant. Yes, you've made that clear like 4
Yes.
times. We understand.
Well,
Well,
I
then
think
you
the
should probably move past
nature.
it.
I think the nature of the question, though, is there any moral difference? So, like, if it's exactly
not
as
ethics.
convenient, if it's exactly convenient as to save the baby or the fertilized egg in a vial, you've got exactly the same amount of time, exactly the same distance, etc., then it's pretty much a 50-50 thing, I think, is the nature of the question.
Yeah, but I
Yeah, it
already
shouldn't be
handled why this
decidable.
isn't relevant.
Yeah, it really is. Well, to your point, LSP, it really isn't decidable because, again, I don't believe in this sort of math
Well,
of
just
human
making sure you're
lives.
consistent. That's the point of the hypothetical.
No,
Well,
I
we
understand.
can-
That's
Choosing to
perfectly
carry
save
fine.
a
this-
child doesn't make it inconsistent with the idea that another thing isn't qualified.
Shiny, you're making this
No,
much
if-
more
if you-
animus than it has to be.
If you commit to one over the other, you have to explain why. If you're committed to the idea that they're both.
No, you don't. I don't have to justify any of my personal subjective morals to you. Those are morals.
Well, no. Hold on. There is, just to disagree with you a little bit more here, Shiny. There is an idea that your morals should flow. Like, your morals aren't just your opinions. Your morals and your ethics, like the
But
words
in
in
this
philosophy.
situation, it's completely equally permissible ethically. So it's entirely just whatever I want.
Okay, again, if you're trying to be consistent, you should try to have
But
your
it
morals
is
live up
consistent.
to.
Either one you choose.
No,
is-
I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying.
In fact, not
you
saving
know,
them is still consistent.
Well,
There's no ethical reason you have to save anyone.
Yeah, it'd be like the ethics of like not deciding. It'd be like making the decision to not throw the switch either way on the trolley problem, essentially. But yeah, and I agree. It's just that I'm okay. It's a very. I'm getting into pedantics now because I'm just disagreeing with the notion of like morality just being opinions and ethics being like something else. But that's a pedantic point, I admit. And so we can continue. You guys have any questions?
Well, yeah. Earlier, you guys tried to make the statement that self-ownership and will defines a human being. Is it ethical to kill a comatose person by this?
No, it's not.
Why? They have no self-ownership or will.
They do still have neurons. What are you talking about?
Well, what if it's a case of like Terry Schiavo, where the brain had been completely replaced by fluid except for just some base lower motor functions?
Well, I'm okay with. We can also expand this, I think, to just to make the concept of it easier to talk about brain death. And at that point, there's a reasonable case to be made of, the family taking the person who's brain dead off of life support isn't murder, obviously, because at that point you could say, again, with this notion, it would be acceptable either way to either take him off of life support or to put him back on, because it's not that his will is gone, again, because I believe it's a transcendent concept, but you could make the case that he's completely cut off from his will because he no longer has the material means to communicate with it. And so, no, it would not be murder to take like the brain dead person or like someone with just sort of like base functions off of light support. That is how I would justify it anyway.
I'd like to echo that, but with a little bit of addition.
Libertarian twist?
Well, kind of. So if their brain is functional, no, you can't kill them. However, you're not required to provide a service unless there's like some sort of contractual obligation. And denying a service is not a violation of rights. And if the brain is dead and not functioning, then they're dead. You can't kill someone who's dead.
So I feel like you've tautologically defined will as neurons, and this feels weird to me. I think will is the ability to act out on something, and if you got neurons firing that disallow you to act on anything, you don't really have.
Neurons are what give an entity the ability to make decisions, and that ability to make
and
decisions.
If you're brain dead, you have no ability to make decisions, right? If you're brain dead, you can't make decisions.
I said that if the brain is not functioning, they're dead.
Right. Okay. So
I just said that.
So let's say properly functioning, right? Yeah, your brain can be functioning.
No, that's something different.
Insofar.
No.
Okay, so your brain.
Hold on.
Will you please shut the fuck up and let me make a point?
Whoa.
But
Everyone, calm down. Calm.
Jesus, let me make a point.
Whoa.
But
Okay.
you can't say,
Shiny,
you
let him
agree
finish,
with this
please.
and then change what I've said. That's not acceptable.
Shiny, just let him make the case and then argue it first, please.
But
For the
he's
love of
putting
God,
words in
please.
my mouth.
Don't worry
Correct
about it.
him after he
Respond
said it.
Yes.
Okay, guys, can we take a pause? Everyone take a pause right now. All right. Who was talking before everything went downhill?
LSP.
That would be
Okay,
me.
then unfortunately, no offense, Shiny, but we need to let LSP talk since he was already making a
redefined
point.
what I said right after.
I understand,
Argue
I understand, but let him say his point, and then you can rebut it if you don't like it, okay?
Fine.
So
All
if I
right.
redefine what you say, I'm trying to find the boundaries of what it is you're talking about, right? I'm trying to find the nuance in what you say. As I said earlier, you seem to define will by the existence of neurons, and that seemed to be tautological to me. Okay, so you said then if the brain is functioning, okay, what the brain functions to me might mean something different than what the brain functions to you. A brain dead person can still have a functioning brain insofar as it provides life support, insofar it still allows a person to breathe. But beyond that, they might have absolutely no capability of anything else. They might not be conscious. They might not be able to act. They might not have any will whatsoever. And under that situation, I'm asking, would it be ethical to kill that person? Would that be any different than killing just any other animal?
So you're defining not fully functioning as that they will have no ability to send urges to their body to enact anything at all. That they're cut off, right?
By fully functioning, yes, I mean consciousness. I mean by fully functioning.
I'm asking.
You asked for a clarification. You want to let me clarify? By fully functioning, I mean the ability to have consciousness. If you don't have that ability, then your brain is not fully functioning.
Right. I don't think consciousness is what defines a will.
Yes, you defined will as neurons, and this seems to be.
No, I did not.
Well,
okay.
May I just jump in just to clarify my point real quick, LSP, and I'll let you go on?
Yeah, waiting on you, dude.
Yeah, no, okay. I just wanted to make sure you were finished. But no, the way I would again put it is will is something more that can't be boiled down to neurons. And so if we lose contact with it and there's a reasonable estimation that whatchamacallit in contact with it again, then it's okay to take that person off of life support. In the same sense, if you just kind of have like your lizard brain left that just has sort of keeps you breathing and kind of keeps you sustaining, you don't have to support that person either, because that's not really them either. Again, they've lost the reasonable ability to be in contact with their will. So I would say that if you take them off food and essentially just kind of let them, off of their IV and just essentially kind of just let them starve themselves, that would be okay. That wouldn't be murder, because at that point, there's no reasonable expectation that that person is ever going to be in contact with their will again. And so it's not really them at that point.
So that was my argument. What would be the difference we're having here is that we're all operating under different definitions of will.
Okay. Well, I think Shane might have just had a question that clarified it. Do you want to go, Shane?
Yeah. What would be the difference then between just taking the feeding tube out and allowing him to starve to death, which if he has any awareness at all is going to be very unpleasant, and just say, upping the morphine drip until, he passes away from a morphine overdose? What would be the difference?
One is an action. That's literally what it is. It's an act against, whereas the other one is just no longer providing a service. And the issue is, it's not about how much pain the person's going to be in. That's not ethics.
But yeah, it is. There's some ethics to that, but no, I think
That's medical ethics, not what we're talking about.
We,
oh wait, did LSP just leave?
yeah,
That
we
might just
see.
be-
Yeah,
Yeah, I
we
think
seem
he
to have
dropped.
lost. Yeah, we lost LSP. He'll be back.
Okay,
But yeah,
but-
the avoidance of suffering is one aspect of ethics.
Medical ethics. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about, with what are permissible and impermissible actions.
hold on, just it is no. Shane raises a reasonable question, but I think your point in itself, when you stop a person from feeding, though, to just sort of clarify this matter a bit. Okay, cool, he's back. Just to clarify it again a bit, when the expectation that is when you stop feeding someone, you've basically been able to determine that, it's just maybe they'll feel pain, but they're not really, and they've lost contact with their will because of majority brain death and stuff like that. So the idea is, as you're starving them, it's not really them that's noticing. It's just sort of like the husk of them that's noticing.
I think you missed the logical conundrum I was making, because either he has awareness or he doesn't. If he doesn't and his will is gone, then if I understand your position correctly, he would be brain dead. So he would really be already dead. So it really wouldn't matter from an ethical standpoint if you pulled the tube out or if you turn up the morphine. If he does have awareness, though, how would that change things, between pulling out the feeding tube and
Will
I think
isn't
it's-
See what I'm saying?
defined by awareness.
I see what you're saying. I think it's sort of like a minor, in my opinion, it's sort of a minor detail in that being that awareness and will are different things. You could make the case that it wouldn't really matter because it's not really that person at that point. And so you could just up the morphine and have him die by OD, which would be less painless, but it's not really them at all.
If the
But no,
person
I'm
is dead,
asking-
you're not killing them.
Is there any room, do you think, in an ethical framework for humane actions like upping the morphine drip?
I haven't thought about it that intently, so I myself couldn't say, but I'd be willing to hear considerations both way, depending on if you thought, there should be some consideration for the awareness of the person that's left. I think LSP had a question though, and I think it's a good question. So do you want to
but I think we've actually found one exception to what you were saying. We've gone from this absolutist, you cannot do this because of the will, to there may be certain cases where it might be ethical to do so.
Not
That's
if the
because
person's alive. No.
Well, it's because I've distinguished the fact that they're no longer in contact with their will. Again, will is the big thing because people contact with it in some sense. And if they're not in contact with it, that does take away a lot of considerations. Yes. Like, I think there's a lot of, we share a lot of faculties with animals, and we say they're not human or they're not, like animals are aware, but essentially you put down dogs by, doing a kind of overdose thing. I'm not exactly sure of like the exact medical thing that goes on, but you essentially do the same thing to dogs because dogs don't have consciousness, and it's okay to like put them down like that. And so at that point, if the person has lost contact with their will or their consciousness, they're a husk of them former selves, even if they do have some like awareness, because it's just really the same faculty that we share with all other animals, which doesn't imply any special moral considerations. And so, again, if you want to give special moral consideration to the awareness, that's a debate I'm willing to hear, but I don't, at that point, because it's not the will and it's not the real person per se, I think there's wiggle room, in my opinion.
Okay, so then is that wiggle room present when the baby is just an embryo and doesn't have any neurons or anything else that can set up that configuration, if that hasn't happened yet?
Well, no, because it's the person who's gone into a comatose position or a brain dead position to experience life and will at the same time. He's been allowed to fully develop as a being and fully realize his form. This is preemptively cutting off existing, which I would also say is wrong, because it's taking action against a being and stopping it from develop. It's like it's essentially kneecapping a kid and confining him to a wheelchair for the rest of his life, to a much, much greater extent, though, because it's actually more accurate to say, you're just shooting the kid because you're not allowing him to fully develop as a human being. This is not allowing the fetus to fully develop, essentially.
LSP, did you have something to say?
Oh man, I came in this late. I was still wanting to know what everyone's definition of will was, but I disconnected.
Oh, do we want to answer that right now then?
Can you just answer in a quick sentence?
Yes, I did this at the
sure.
beginning, but I can do it again.
Please
All right,
do.
Shani, you go first then.
Will is the ability to make decisions.
And I'll just say mine real quick. Will is the transcendent power we have that gives us the ability to make decisions, just to add a little bit of a caveat onto that.
Okay, well, if it's just the ability to make decisions, then I'm back to nematodes having will. And for the same reason, you wouldn't be able to kill nematodes that have gotten into your eye, because they have very rudimentary decision-making abilities.
Nematodes have, okay, so this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the faculties we share with animals. So perhaps I didn't give a good enough definition, but like animals have the same ability to share, to make decisions as we do. Like even like the most intelligent apes don't, because it's a much more like an ape can't, it responds to stimuli in a much more causal fashion. It's why we're much better at predicting animal behavior than human behavior, because there isn't this sort of unknown element. You can kind of predict that there's a sort of a preset within animal minds most of the time, and that there's pretty much a set sort of biological response, and it varies between them, but it doesn't really vary all that wildly, except with like a few cases. But those cases don't mean animals have will. It just means there might be something biologically screwed up with them. In humans, it's a different case. Yeah, you can go, Shani.
So even if nematodes are able to express some sort of rudimentary will, they are invading you actively. They have actively chosen then to invade you. So it's a private property violation. I don't see the relevance.
Why wouldn't you say a baby actively invades?
Because the baby did not actively choose to be there. The baby does not act.
Sure it did.
Yeah,
the sperm acted on the egg.
Well, no, the sperm didn't act. The sperm doesn't have consciousness. It's just a cell. It was just, again, it was following its biological preset to go and fertilize the egg. If you really want to put responsibility on anyone for sort of having the baby be there, what I would say is that it's really the real people who consented to having it put there were the woman and the man who engaged in sexual intercourse, because pregnancy is the natural conclusion of sex, pretty much. If you agree to have sex, you accept one of the consequences is going to be pregnancy, and so those are the people really responsible for having it be there.
So I would frame it like this: when you have sex and you have a child, you consent to that child being there, but you can withdraw consent at any time. I would see this the same way as I would any other private.
Well, no, it's not it isn't a matter of consent, though. You can't consent. It's not consent, though. It's like saying, if I throw a baseball, I can't withdraw consent of throwing that baseball right as it's about to hit that other person's head. It's still my responsibility, because at the moment I threw the baseball at somebody, the conclusions and the risks were clear, and I accepted the consequences, or the possible consequences I might have missed, but I accepted the possible consequence of hitting that person in the head when I threw the baseball. And so it's not fair to say you can just, you can engage in an action knowing full well the consequences and suddenly just try to renege on the consequences. Like, there's no moral case for that.
Well, the reason you can't do that with a baseball is because the baseball's travel is instantaneous. There's a 9-month gestation period with a child.
No, it's not just that. You could make a case that, it was just like an arm twitch or something. It was just something else, and I can't really take responsibility for it. And that might be true. But if you consciously made the decision and there was no other like biological thing interfering as you were throwing the baseball, then it hitting someone is fully your consequence. It's not simply a matter of how fast it happens. It's a matter of the fact that you made the conscious decision to engage in the act with knowing full well the consequences, in the same way that people choose to engage in sex.
The speed at which it happened was really important to your scenario, because you're talking about not being able to withdraw consent the moment before it hits. But if it took a little longer and you had the ability to run and catch the ball before it hits, then you could withdraw that consent. So
Well,
the speed was very much a part of your scenario.
Well, no, then
abortion
it's
is-
also possible to consider the fact that you can run and catch the ball. So you're considering all these different possibilities, but you still recognize the consequence at some point that the ball could hit that person. It's still a consequence that at every stage of this, you're willing to accept. And pregnancy is a consequence that everybody accepts when they engage in sex, even if they think
Also-
it's unlikely. Like, even if
Also-
I think it's unlikely I hit the kid because I could possibly run and catch the ball, or because I'm such a horrible throw I could miss the kid, I still accept the possibility that I could hit him in the head. In the same way, everybody, no matter how unlikely they think it is, accepts the possibility that they could get pregnant, no matter how unlikely they think it is. So again, the speed is irrelevant. It's the fact that you're willing to acknowledge the consequence and engage in the action anyway.
And regardless, this is a weird example, because unlike the baseball, the baby does develop neurons and the ability to make decisions. So your comparison should more be that the baseball suddenly is alive and with a will, and then you want to shoot it to get it to stop its trajectory. You can't.
I guess. I think that's somewhat irrelevant too, but I see your point.
Well, no,
All right, so what
because
about-
in this case, you're now wanting to violate the baseball because it's going to hit someone, but it's not its fault. It's your fault it's going to hit someone. So you're wanting to act out on an innocent party because of what a guilty party did.
Yeah, to avert consequences. Yes.
Yeah, well, okay. So if you're going to accept that premise, what justification do you have for acting on an innocent party that's done nothing?
Well, I can make a societal justification. I could say that abortion reduces crime. Like,
That's
there's a
pragmatic.
societal justification.
Okay, yeah. Well, this is the thing. Now this is the thing I think we agreed in at the beginning to not
Oh,
get
yeah,
into.
yeah,
Like,
gotcha.
Mhm.
All right. So I guess I would phrase it like this. I think you can give consent to an action. I think you can also withdraw consent at any time. And I would say it's akin to this. I would say it's akin to sharing a kidney with a violinist for a 9-month period. Now, at any time, let's say you volunteer for it. At any time, I would support the idea that you have bodily autonomy and you can withdraw that consent and just leave. I would say this applies to anybody, and I would say this is also akin to abortion.
hold on.
So let me
just
ask you.
hold on. Just to clarify real quickly, LSP, are you saying? And I imagine this isn't what you're saying, but it sounded weird to me, so I just want to clarify. Are you saying that if I donate my kidney to someone, that I have the right to take it back?
No. So let's invent a hypothetical, right? You agree to be attached at the hip so that somebody can share your kidney, because if they will die without it for 9 months.
So, like,
Can you withdraw consent at any?
No.
agree to be like
Actually,
Siamese twins?
This is more. The difference is.
Oh, hold on. I
the
want to answer this
violinist-
hypothetical real quick.
No, I'm answering the hypothetical.
Okay.
The
go
difference
ahead.
is this violinist is unconscious and you've chosen to put yourself there, and then they become aware and they're now, starting to make decisions on their own while being attached to you. And then you go, well, I know you didn't choose to be in this state, but I'm going to withdraw your ability to be in this state, and I'm going to harm you in the process. So I'm going to kill you. You're not talking about a baby who didn't have any option in this when you're talking about a violinist who has full control over where they are. You
So
are.
let me ask you this then. What about in cases where the woman got pregnant because of a rape?
Well, again, that's acting out on an innocent party because of a guilty party. You
So
cannot
Yeah,
punish the innocent for someone else's action.
The guilty party is the person who rapes the woman, not the
Yes.
woman for getting pregnant.
I didn't
Right? This
say
is somebody throwing a body under her.
Right. I didn't say she was guilty, did I?
All right, let me tie this back, because in this scenario, the rapist is the guy who throws the baseball that becomes sentient on the way over, or sapient, I should say, because sapience is what we've been talking about. The baby is the ball, and then the woman is the person the ball was thrown at and wants to swat it out of the way.
Yeah,
So
she's acting
that's
against
how I was relating it back to what you were saying, pragmatic.
No, sure. That's a fair analogy to make. What I would say to that though is then the difference is here is that you're not simply swatting the ball away. You're like, again, because it's a weird analogy because you have to pretend the ball is an actual human life and has just as much moral consideration as a human being. And the thing
Right.
is,
The ball becomes sapient on the way over, and let's say that swatting it out of the way would kill it.
Even if it didn't kill it, you're violating it.
Well, no, you're not. If it were a baseball and you simply swatted it out of the way non-lethally,
you're still violating it, actually.
Well, no, you have a right to reason. Look, if somebody is if they're, to put it in a weird sort of hypothetical, because I'm willing to defend that these guys have a reasonable hypothetical here. If somebody is like, let's make it like a Batman versus. If everybody saw that horrible Batman versus Superman movie, I'll use that.
Fuck you. That movie was awesome.
I didn't see it.
Okay. Well, think about it like this for a second. Lex Luthor captured Martha, Superman's mother, and says that in order to get Martha back, that Superman has to go kill Batman.
Spoiler alert, by the way.
If you haven't seen the movie, right? How long is that? That movie's been out for like 4 years now. I don't care about spoilers.
But the ball is innocent. At the end of the day, if Batman's innocent, I don't know this movie. If he's innocent, then no, it's not acceptable. It's not permissible for whoever to go kill Batman. I don't really get this.
No. My point is that
clearly.
Hold on, no. Let me finish the analogy though.
Okay.
So, mom is kidnapped by Lex Luthor, and so Superman. And in order to get him back, Lex Luthor says, "You gotta go kill Batman. You gotta go kill Batman for me, or else I'm gonna kill your mom." Batman still has the right to defend himself with Superman from Superman lethally if necessary, because he still has his right to self-defense.
No, that's different because Superman is acting.
You're
Even
right.
if it's a coerced action, he has chosen to act.
No. You're right. I'm not disagreeing with you there. I'm just saying their hypothetical is reasonable because it's still reasonable to say that the woman can swat the baseball away.
Or the baby isn't acting against them. Superman, I assume it's Superman, right? He has made the active decision to go try to kill Batman. The baby has made no active decision. The baseball has made no active decision. It's not related.
Yeah, but you still have a right. Like, okay, so then let's just say this instead to make it, because these guys have a point, and I'm trying to defend them here. But like, if I have like unconscious person launched at me from a cannon for some reason, I don't know why, and it's gonna like kill, maybe not me, maybe my family, let's say, and my only two options are to like front of my family to defend my family and kill the guy because his guts are gonna splatter all over the case, or have this guy just ram into my family and use them as a cushion and he might get away okay. I have the right, and my family has the right, to defense and put up that wall even though he is unconscious in that decision. They have the right to use lethal force in self-defense. But the difference is here,
putting up a wall is not lethal force, actually.
Well, I'm saying he's launched from a cannon, so it's going to kill him.
Right.
Like if he splashes into that wall.
To kill him is not the same as you killing him. Putting up a wall.
If you take the action to put the wall in his way, knowing he's going to hit that wall at speed and die, yeah, that is taking an action to kill him.
No, it is not. It is actually just acting on your property rights right there. Just putting a wall up.
No, but you're still. I don't think you can separate that from the act of them being killed. But to sort of, I want to save the analogy somewhat here because it sounds like in building.
What action are you taking against them?
You can actively. This guy, like, you're taking the action of defending yourself. Defending yourself isn't just a negative thing; it is a positive action, right?
It's not against this other person, though.
Well, it is, because if even though he's unconscious, he was still launched out of a cannon at you.
No, if you put up a wall and they happen to hit it and die, the person who launched them is the person who killed them, not you.
I see the point. Can we move on from this stupid hypothetical?
Yeah, okay, I'm down for that.
Did we ever?
All right. Well, let me ask something else then, because
Shane, you still there?
Hello? Is
can
this
you hear
me?
me? Hello.
Damn,
Okay,
dude.
okay, yeah, now you're back. I think you phased out for a sec.
Okay.
LSP, I think your internet is starting to become an infection.
Yeah, fuck.
Well, we got a winter storm blowing through, so I might be having issues as well. But so anyway, my question was, because y'all have said over and over about the fact that it's a human and pragmatic. You brought up animals and how they're different. My question is, what would an animal have to do to all of a sudden gain this level of conscious will that would entitle it to the same protections? Like if someone found like a population of chimpanzees that just through whatever evolutionary pressure became a lot smarter or whatever, what criteria would you use to determine whether or not they were deserving of the same ethical considerations?
A couple things. This is something I'll just say from the outright impossible, but assuming it were, just to go off of that, it would have to be something transcendent that humans have access to, because this is my belief, my position is that we were given access to it by God. So, I mean, how do you prove God gave access to will to other creatures? That'd be a kind of a tough one. But I guess if you wanted to try to prove it in a material fashion, which would be somewhat dubious, but we could debate. But just to run along with the hypothetical, you'd have to prove that Z's, simply beyond being super intelligent, have also like freed themselves from a certain degree of biologically preset decision making to some sort of degree. I don't know what that. This is a whole nother philosophical question that we'd have to have, but it'd have to be something like
but it goes to the root of what you've been talking about.
And the issue is that your answer on its own is an unfalsifiable premise, right? That God gave us will to make us persons. You have no way of knowing that animals weren't given the same will, and I have no way of knowing that you were given will. This is unfalsifiable.
And you also have no way of knowing that God doesn't give that will to the fetus until 3 months or whatever. I mean, there's nothing you can't do tests and make determinations based off of it.
Oh, no. Well, just to clarify, it's unfalsifiable in a strictly material sense, which is why I said it was dubious setting up material standards. But that's the point of this debate, is that it's philosophically falsifiable. Like, you can try to falsify Thomas Aquinas's 5 proofs of God in some way. Like, these are things that can be done. But I'm being told we have a question in the form of a super chat.
Yes, we have $5 from John Mosby, who says, if I injured the violinist, would I have an obligation to address that injury? Should the mother address the vulnerability she created in the fetus?
That kind of sounds like it's directed to me and LSP, I guess, right?
I thought it was me because I opposed the violinist hypothetical. But
Okay,
I think Shiny's issue with the hypothetical, I think Shiny's issue with abortion in general is that it's an active harm caused on a fetus. Conceivably, if you could remove a fetus without causing harm to it, I don't think Shiny would have a problem.
100%. Yes.
Okay, but would you be fine with the idea of just leaving the fetus to die?
Yes.
Okay.
That's not an act.
So your problem is more with the procedure itself.
Yes.
The fact that, I mean, like, if it's just removing the fetus and then it survives or dies on its own, then you're okay.
Right? Pretty much, as long as you can't say that it was a direct consequence of your action that it died from.
Well, it was like go back to the blizzard example. You kick someone out of your home during a blizzard. It's not the same thing as shooting him in the head, but he'll die as a consequence.
Unconscious and not there of their own volition, like you drag them in from the storm and then you throw them out into the storm while they're unconscious, then yeah, you've killed that person.
This is a bit of. I'll just say this.
I'm sorry. Go after you.
Okay. No, I think it's a bit of a. It's a bit of like.
Okay, so you want me to go?
Yeah, you go. I'll formulate.
Okay,
my thoughts.
so Shiny. Evacuating a fetus and leaving it to die and it dying is a direct result of your action. It requires you to live.
But
Okay,
it's
even if you could assuming you could take it out intact, if you just leave it to die, it will die. It will be a result of your action.
it's not aggressing on their will is the thing.
So the only time you care is when it's an aggression on your will.
Yes.
So would you be fine with leaving a child to starve to death?
I mean, I wouldn't morally be fine with it, but not providing for the child is not an ethical problem.
Yeah, this is
I disagree completely.
It's really weird, Shiny, because it sounds like you're talking about an oft-criticized idea that Murray Rothbard had in the Ethics of Liberty about that parents, don't have an obligation to the child, so they can just leave them to die. And yet, under that exact same the exact same line of reasoning, Rothbard made what seems to be a pretty solid case for not really that abortion is moral, but that it's not an act of aggression against the fetus. I don't know if you've ever read the Ethics of Liberty or not, but that sounds like it.
Well, yeah. I think.
But we're talking about nature killing someone, and that is not coercive.
I think
you have to take some serious logical leaps to arrive at that being nature in that situation.
Starvation is nature.
Yes, and leaving somebody to starve is a consequence of your action.
Not
or I should say
shooting
inaction.
someone is passive. That's an inaction.
Yes, okay, you got me.
But you have taken an action. You have taken an action to move the fetus from a place where they will not starve to death to a place where they will. That's your action.
I don't have a beef in this fight because this isn't my position. So Shiny.
Tell me if this is accurate. You're fine with abortion. You're just not fine with the procedure.
You're wrong.
Why don't you let me finish, Shiny? Jesus Christ, you gotta. You're fine with. You're not. Shut up. You keep doing this. You're fine with abortion. You're just not fine with. Oh, for fuck's sake, shut up. You're fine with abortion. You're just not fine with the procedure because it acts harm on the child. Okay, is that a fair summation of your views or not?
No, because that's not abortion. Abortion is the act of harm, of murder.
Abortion is simply the act of removing the fetus.
Abortion is
the termination. The fetus.
Abortion is the termination of a pregnancy. That's the definition.
Yeah, but the termination involves the actual, depending on what stage you are in development, it's the actual ripping of limbs sometimes. At other points, it's like drilling into the child's
argue that
it's
C-section is
abortion. But they only do that.
Okay. We get one at a time, guys.
Yeah, they only do the drilling and cutting apart stuff if it's a situation where either the baby's already dead or the mother is in such dire medical need that she needs to.
They have to. No, I get what you're saying, but they do have to. They are the ones killing it in some way. They are the ones I think it's through. I forget the exact process. It's like saline injection or something. I don't know if it's like suffocation of the child.
Can I please? Are you saying that a C-section is an abortion?
I'll let you guys go on.
Are you saying that a C-section is an abortion?
If the fetus is premature, then technically yes, a C-section would be an abortion. It would only not be an abortion if it had come to term. I thought you said that it was the termination of a pregnancy. C-section does end a pregnancy. But if it's already reached, if the baby has come to term,
it's still terminating a pregnancy.
Your issue is that you've defined abortion to be the termination of a baby and not the termination of a pregnancy, right?
No.
Yeah, well, this is sort of
saying it's the termination of life.
Okay.
Well, this is
as an active harm against.
So let's assume you can extract a fetus without actively harming the baby. You're fine with.
Without harming the baby, correct.
Okay, so then you're fine with abortion in this sense.
If you're going to define abortion in that sense where it doesn't make sense.
You're the one who was defining it as a C-section earlier.
No, I'm asking you if you define it as that. Can you please?
Sure. Yes, I will. I will define it as that. In this sense, I define abortion as simply the termination of a pregnancy.
Well, then now we have the really awkward situation of there are some abortions that I'm okay with and some that I'm not okay with because this isn't a useful way to use the word.
Okay.
I think it is weird to like the termination of a pregnancy, I think, is a very legalistic reading of it, because again, like, Shiny is right in this sense that, a birth or a C-section is not an abortion, and a doctor wouldn't define it that way. So I imagine I think there's probably something more to the deliberate termination of most often performed. Yeah, well, I think termination and expulsion also occurred. Oh, and I'm reading the definitions that Shane posted. I'll just read them out loud so everybody in
I got these from DuckDuckGo, and they're from Wordnik, so everyone knows.
Okay, so the termination of pregnancy and expulsion of an embryo or a fetus that is incapable of survival, any of various procedures that result in such termination and expulsion, also called induced abortion, the premature expulsion of non-viable fetus from the uterus, a miscarriage. Oh, so that's interesting. They're defining miscarriage as abortion.
Miscarriage is
Well, these are three separate definitions,
very-
so they're different ways
Okay.
that the word's used.
But are you
Yeah, so,
going
okay,
to
so I
tell me
think-
you don't understand how I'm using the word? Is that what
Well,
we're
hold on,
going to
I
argue here?
Are you using the word in the first sense where it necessitates the fetus being incapable of survival?
When I'm using the word abortion, I'm referring to a violent killing removal of it.
Okay, so I'm just curious. What would you define nature acting on a fetus?
Nature
Like-
acting
like-
on
like-
a fetus? What
Yeah,
do
like
you-
if the mother took a pill that would result in the fetus dying, is that nature acting on the fetus, or is that the mother
no,
killing?
that's the mother taking an action to kill it.
Okay, and so I'm just curious, where else does
I don't really know where you're going with this, so you're going to have to answer your own question there.
Your
I'm not so
definition
clear
is
what active or is nature.
your definition then is
so-
specifically about killing it, not just terminating the pregnancy.
I'm talking about murder acting against.
You're talking about specifically killing it.
I'm talking about specifically violating. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know anyone else who uses the word that way.
I
so
only know people who
definite definitions are important, so we don't have confusion.
The whole issue is we don't have a single definition of will, or a single definition of natural, or single definition of abortion.
don't know anyone who uses the term abortion to mean expulsion from the body.
No.
without
Hold
harm.
on. I think it's
That's the common definition, I think.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty
okay.
much is.
No, yeah,
I don't
I'm not,
know anyone who talks about it like that.
we can go back and forth between colloquial uses of words and technical definitions of words all day. I don't think that's important. I think the important thing to what Shane is saying, though, is that the term. I think this first definition provides an interesting caveat and something that we could build on here, because I think it says the first definition, to read it again, is the termination of pregnancy and expulsion of an embryo or of a fetus that is incapable of survival. Now, I think the key thing we can ask there is, like, why isn't it capable of survival? Is it because that it's already been dead and now it's already been killed in the womb and stopped from developing? So an action has been taken against it, or is it simply that we don't have the technology capable of keeping it alive at that stage?
I'm reading it as it's not mature enough to survive on its own outside the womb, or maybe maybe technology might be able to make it where you could hook it up to an incubator or something, but otherwise, it's not going to survive outside the womb. That's how
I second this. Survivability means viability to me, and if it's not viable, it can't survive. In which case, abortion is okay because it's not.
Yeah, well, I think then the one objection I'll slightly raise to this kind of point is that premature pregnancies induced by, or premature births, I should say, induced by something. I don't know what. I don't think, and the child is incapable of surviving on its own, I don't think should be considered. I don't think should be considered abortions, because again, if it can be hooked up to, if it's a natural thing and it just sort of happened, that's one thing. But if it's someone going in with the intent to remove it and possibly doing something to it beforehand, I think that's a little something different.
I'm still not clear what necessarily is nature acting on it, and what is an actual act from the.
Okay, so taking a pill, that's ingesting something that isn't naturally produced in the body to go and kill and kill the child, essentially. Something that, to differentiate, there might be, there's like autoimmune diseases where it's like the body produces something that's intentionally harmful. Say there was an autoimmune disease that attacked fetuses within the body, that would be natural. The mother didn't have a hand in bringing that about. It just kind of happened. And so that would be an example of like the mother purposefully ingesting in something that's not produced in her body to kill the fetus versus something going on in her body that's she's unaware of that just happens to kill the fetus. That's how I would distinguish between natural and unnatural.
Right.
But what if the pill? Well, what if the
I'm
pill is something that, like a hormone or something that her body might create anyway and just isn't at the moment, but taking that pill would still.
It's still her actively choosing to do.
Hold on now. This. I think no. That's an interesting question. What I would say is that if pill and she was unaware of the side effects of it, like she wasn't fully aware of the consequences, like she couldn't fully consent to the action, and then the child happened to die because she took the pill, it wouldn't be natural, obviously, but it also wouldn't be, I guess you could say it was an accidental abortion. I'd still count that as abortion, but it wasn't purposeful. And so I don't think it'd be fair to blame the mother unless like she chose to be willfully ignorant versus like if she knew the consequence and then did it, then she's acting with, will again and with purpose. And so to purposely kill the child. And then I would say that's a purposeful abortion, I guess.
So my issue is I would argue that being left in nature to die is purposely killing the child as well, because the child doesn't have the will to survive on his own.
Yeah, no,
he doesn't have the agency to enact. Yeah.
I would agree with you there. I think it's kind of, I think your quarrel is more with Shiny on this issue, because I would agree with you on that point.
So you're arguing from a standpoint then of virtue ethics, where it's the intentions of the actions that matter, right?
Yeah, that's fair to say. I would say I wouldn't know. I don't know if it's virtue
I'm not
ethics.
arguing from that.
Yeah, that's not what I would derive deontologically, or even from a consequentialist standpoint, which I'm not really a consequentialist, but still. Okay, but the point is, it doesn't really matter, why you do something. What matters is the actions you take and the consequences.
Yeah, I'm all for
May
that.
I please clarify what I said about leaving the child? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So ethically, yes, it's permissible because it's not an action against, right? That doesn't mean that I'm like, yes, leave children on the side of the road. I would just like to clarify that, because I think people think I'm like, do this thing, it's a good idea. Ethics are not concerned with what's good, nice, happy, joyful. Ethics are concerned with what is permissible and impermissible.
Or right or wrong, I think would probably be the terminology everybody's familiar with.
Well, not from a standpoint of personal morality, because I have moral problems with abortions. Morally, I'm against it, but when I argue from a standpoint of ethics, these are the conclusions I come to. So there's a distinction there.
Right.
So I would argue that digesting a pill is taking an action against oneself and not the baby. And I would say it's the baby who takes from the mother that in consequentially results in its death. Like, that's why I'm saying, like,
it's more the mother's body pumping things into the baby, if we really want to go down to that level.
Well, sure, that's a case too. I think there's a better case to be, though, that again, it's awareness of the consequences of what's going to happen. Yeah, you could say, oh, it's, you're doing something to yourself. But, again, I think that's sort of I think that's sort of the separation I tried to make earlier between the accidental abortion versus like the purposeful one, which was that, if the mother took the pill intending for it to only have consequences on her, and she genuinely did not know about the side effects it might have on a fetus, I wouldn't say she's in the wrong, but it's still, I would say it is an abortion. Whereas if she takes the pill and knows the consequences that it's going to have an effect on the fetus, I would say that is wrong, because she's aware of the interconnection between her and the fetus, and she's aware that ingesting something, in her is going to have an effect on it.
I will say you can violate someone without intending to violate them, as long as it's your choice of will that violates them.
Yeah, like, that's it's kind of like manslaughter, example, where it's like it's not murder, but it's
it's your property, and I go trampling through your like cornfields. I've still violated your property rights, even if that wasn't my intent, but that was my will that did it.
So to like make this analogous to something like real world, if you make food every day and somebody comes and eats it and you're fine with that, but but it's your food that you're producing and you're acting upon it, and they're acting on your food, of their own volition. At what point is it unethical to sabotage that food? Like, how can you call that acting on them since they're acting on the food?
I keep having to clarify this for you. The baby.
Yes, because you're not doing a good job of.
No, because you're not listening to me, dude. Okay.
If you say so.
The baby is not acting to get resources from the mother. The mother's body and the baby's body are both giving each other stuff. The baby gives hormones and the mother gives food, effectively. And the baby has not chosen to be there. This is more like if you take a unconscious person and you put them next to like some sort of food drip that happens to go straight into their mouth, and then you blame them for stealing your food. That's kind of silly.
So I would argue,
I would agree with you, LSP, about the whole food thing.
Which is my point. I would argue that if you remove the food drip, it's tantamount to just taking a pill, right? The consequence is the same. The baby's going to die, or the unconscious person's going to die.
It's not the same as taking a pill.
Either you have an obligation to Shiny. Stop. You stop. Okay. Either you have an obligation to this unconscious person, or you don't. The consequences are the same. It will die.
Yeah, in each case, you are taking an action, and that action results in that consequence.
No, let me explain again. The difference is an abortion, as far as how most people use the term, which is to terminate by killing, would be like you stomping in this guy's skull because he's eating your food and you don't want him there anymore.
Okay,
to just move him out from under your food.
I've been looking through.
So the issue.
I've been looking through several definitions, by the way, and I haven't seen a single time.
Right, we're talking about useful definition that is used in the real world. We're not talking about.
That's what dictionaries do. That's what dictionaries do. That's what they're for.
Shane, literally.
Shiny. We're not on this point. No one cares. No one cares. Shiny. The issue was, by your own standard, you said if you could remove a fetus intact and just leave it to die, it would be morally permissible.
I didn't say morally. Can you stop?
Okay, you said ethically permissible. Right. Fine. You said ethically permissible.
What doesn't, neither here nor there. The point is, I'm arguing that action is in no way different in consequences from taking a pill and leaving and killing the child.
Consequences do not determine the ethical value of being permissible or impermissible.
They do if you're a consequentialist, but.
Well, that's not
or a deontologist. So you're dismissing all of deontology and consequentialism?
What?
We're talking about different forms of ethics.
Consequences do not equal permissibility.
Depends on the ethical system you're using. And just to clarify, to answer your question, Shane, yes, I am dismissing deontology and consequentialism outright.
And you are relying pretty much solely on virtue ethics, right?
I'm not.
Yeah, some kind of virtue ethics. You could argue where they come from, but
deontology
Shiny, what's your ethical approach, Shiny?
Deontology.
Well, I mean, I think we just showed that this
not
was
consequence-based
with deontology.
I don't think the will matters. I would argue. Well, actually, let me ask a question that my friend Redbat asked Shane to you, Shiny. This might seem out of left field, but I want to probe your ethics system. Let's say the world was going to die of a disease and one person had the cure, but he refused to give the cure to anybody. Is it ethical to act against that person's will? Okay, so you would let the entire world die.
I didn't say I would necessarily do that. I'm just saying it's not ethically permissible. What you do and don't do is not determined necessarily by what you ought and ought not to do.
But that's what deontological ethics is about, the ethics of actions as opposed to consequentialism, which is about consequences, and virtue ethics, which is about intention.
Okay, so
I'm not talking about intention. I'm not talking about consequences. I'm talking about whether the action in and of itself is permissible or impermissible. That is
right.
Okay, but then what is the difference
of the consequences, Shiny? The consequences are the same. You're going to have a dead child.
I'm not saying that the consequences are different. I'm saying that doesn't affect whether it's ethical or not.
I know. I'm pointing out the flaw in your ethical system by saying the consequences are the same no matter what.
Shiny, let him finish. Shiny, let him finish.
I'm going to finish. All I said was the ethical system is the consequences are the same no matter what you do in your ethical system.
It doesn't.
Let me read it. Let me read it just quickly from Wikipedia. Deontological ethics or deontology is an approach to ethics that determines goodness or rightness from examining acts or the rules and duties that the person doing the act strove to fulfill. This is in contrast to consequentialism, in which rightness is based on the consequences of an act and not by the act itself. Under
Yes.
deontology, an act may be considered right even if the act produces a bad consequence.
Yes.
Okay, so how is your position consistent with deontology?
Because I don't care if it's a good or bad consequence, morally, subjectively, or whatever pragmatic system you use to decide whether the world should be nice or not. Deontology and its ethics are not concerned with the world being a happy place full of sunshine and rainbows. It's concerned with consistency and whether or not the action is right or wrong in and of itself, irregardless of any other factors.
I think Shiny's making the case that the abortion is always wrong, regardless of the consequences of it, or regardless of, the child.
but
I understand her system of ethics, but I think it's I think it's a
Shane,
poor
you
system of ethics if you're not
defined what I'm saying, and you're telling me I'm not doing it right. I don't understand what you think you were reading.
All right, let's go back to the case of the guy who's dying. Do you pull out the feeding tube or do you turn up his morphine drip? In both cases, you are taking an action and they are both for the same purpose. So, how are they not how are they not ethically equivalent from a deontological standpoint?
Because one is a violation of and the other is not.
But the way you determine if something is a violation is by applying ethical principles. So what ethical principle are you using to differentiate them?
Separating the two entities is merely recognizing that they're two separate entities. It's not doing harm unless you've actually done harm.
But on what ethical basis do you differentiate the two acts and have one be ethical and the other not?
Because one is an act against and the other is not.
That sounds like a fair explanation in my mind, but sorry, go on, Shane.
I don't really see the distinction from a purely deontological standpoint.
Okay.
Can I try to explain it?
Thank you. Yes, please.
When you decide to increase someone's morphine drip so that they eventually OD, I'll say this real quick and then I'll get to the super chat read. When you decide to up the morphine drip, you are actively, putting more morphine in. You're choosing to up it to such a degree that they eventually die. Whereas and that's an action, that's a choice. Whereas choosing to take someone's food away is just reverting to inaction. Whereas, feeding the person was the action, not feeding the person is the inaction. That's the null hypothesis.
Pulling out a feeding tube is action. That is an action.
Putting it there in the first place was another action, which you're just reversing now.
That sounds like a distinction without a difference to me.
Okay, we'll leave it there then, and let's read the super chat.
Okay, so we have a $2 donation from Dominique Freeman, and I'm going to assume, sorry if I'm assuming genders here, but I'm going to assume this is a female, and she says, "I'm giving to my baby, it's not stealing, 27 weeks." So I'm going to assume she's saying that she's 27 weeks pregnant, and she doesn't see it as the baby stealing from her.
Did you just assume they are gender?
Yes, I did. I mean, unless men can get pregnant.
How dare you assume her gender? Just
you know what?
because
You're right. I'm
pregnant.
sorry.
Because she's pregnant doesn't mean she's a woman.
You know what? You're right.
She might identify as an attack helicopter.
Mr. Dapperton's gonna have to remove me. I have completely offended his fan base.
You're back.
Hello.
Hey, LSP. Okay, you're in and out of LSP.
I realized something. I want to say this real quick because I started calling Liberal Sanity Project LSP, and the first time I said it, it sounded really, really weird to me. And so I went up and looked the acronym LSP, and I realized the reason it sounded weird to me was because that's also the name of that weird purpley lumpy character in Adventure Time called Lumpy Space Princess. And so if that acronym sounds weird to anyone else, that's why. Just the point of like I felt disgusted saying it, and I didn't know why. And then I looked it up, and I was like, "Oh, this explains it." So, if anyone else is feeling that same feeling, that's why.
So
I would say that liberal space princess would be a much better moniker for it.
So we have a confirmation. Dominique is in fact a attack helicopter. I apologize to you, Dominique. I was wrong, and I hope you forgive me.
You're a horrible person there.
Were you guys talking about me while I was gone?
Yes.
Damn.
Yeah, man, you gotta. I don't know what state-run internet they're using over there.
Nigga, I'm poor.
All right. Was there any other
really good white people internet?
I would like to clarify something that we just left off on because difference. In my mind, from a deontological standpoint, I'd say whatchamacallit, that Shiny is right, and that there is a difference between the two. But I would agree with you, Shane, that it is a distinction without a difference, but that's because I'm a virtue ethicist. So I think Shiny's actually right if you're going to try to stick with the deontological case. But in my opinion, you're actually right that it is a distinction without a difference, just for the wrong reasons.
Well, that's weird, because I would think that virtue ethics would give, the perfect answer. Really, the answer you've been giving, that's the approach of virtue ethics as to why the two are different. I can see getting there with virtue ethics. I can't see getting there through deontology. Not unless you're making your deontological rules just so arbitrary, you're making them to conclude what you want anyway, which is not how it's supposed to work.
I wouldn't say Shiny's doing that.
I
but
mean,
the point
defined them and then told me I wasn't using them, despite the fact that that's what everyone's mad at me in chat about.
Are people mad at you in chat? I'm only relatively paying attention.
People are really not happy with me. That's why I made the distinction that I don't necessarily think it's a good thing to leave a insufficient to survive child to starve. I don't think that's good. It's permissible.
Well,
the only reason I made that distinction.
I think since we're oh boy, we just got speaking of, we just got a big super chat here, $25 from your boy Tallytail.
Woohoo!
And he says, or they say, a blessing from your adorable, wonderful, mighty, dashing Pope, and that's quoted from Pope Tally.
I reject, as a Catholic, Tally, whoever you are an anti-Pope, sir. You are not the true Pope, even though I don't know you, but I am. But the current Pope has set a pretty low bar, so you might actually be a better Pope. I don't know.
You Christians are degenerate people.
The current anti-Pope name is Boot, and he is a Strasserist.
So from a consequentialist standpoint, Shiny, your entire system of ethics is circular and pointless, right? Because the effect is the same. A woman just chooses. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase this. Well, I should say this. You choose through your deontological framework that one method by which somebody is going to die is unethical while another method isn't. But regardless, both methods are the direct result of actions taken by an individual, and they both have the same outcome.
I wouldn't say that they're both a direct result, but that's fine. Shane isn't a consequentialist, so I'm trying to argue the same ethics that I assumed he would be arguing from.
Well, I am. I mean, argue the difference to me. Like, why should I care about your system of ethics if it leads to the same result no matter?
Well, the reason I stick to my system of ethics is because it's consistent, and I think consistency should be valued.
I'm not convinced that that's the case necessarily. I think if your ethical system, for the sake of remaining consistent, allows a baby to starve to death in the winter, so long as you don't act your will upon it, I don't see consistency as a virtue.
Well, that's fine, but that's what I'm using as ethics.
But I still don't. But I still don't see.
The case on deontological ethics: abortion is not acceptable. It's not a.
Well, I'm just gonna quickly say that I still don't see how you're using it to differentiate between different acts.
Well, because Shane, literally actions against versus actions that are not against are different.
But you don't have a scene. Yeah, the issue is the definition of actions against seems to differ arbitrarily. Like I'm arguing they're all actions against.
Yeah, you're just pushing the problem back a step. How do you evaluate if an action is against versus whatever?
I'll white knight for deontology just a little bit more here.
No.
Because, again, this isn't even a position I agree with. I just think, just for clarity's sake in the discussion, the difference between an action for and an action against would be
Hello?
You cut out.
in response, you could say, in like psychology. So like if you're trying to like positively condition something, you're adding something to make that thing, be it animal or human, repeat the action in some way, shape, or form. And an action against would be if you're conditioning them by taking something away. LSP's telling us his
No, I'm telling you, you lagged, and I assumed it was my internet, and I was about to have a shitstorm.
Yeah, you
Okay.
cut out in the middle, so I don't think we got all of it.
It's precarious for me, especially.
Did I lag out that time? Was that my
Yeah,
wrong?
yeah,
that was
I think you
entirely
did it
your
for
fault.
everybody.
Oh, okay,
You were
I lagged
infected
out.
by
All
my
right, so
internet.
I'll start again, and if I lag, just let me know in the chat. But okay, so what I was saying was that an action, if you think about it in senses of like psychological conditioning, you can use positive conditioning.
You're
and you can
cutting
use
out
negative.
again.
I don't know what the hell is up.
Yeah.
'cause
Just try saying it as quickly as you can, I guess.
Welcome to my life.
We already explained this, that it's all LSP's fault.
It's always my fault.
Okay, so as quick as I can. Related to positive and negative conditioning. You want somebody to do something, you give them something good to make them want to do it again. In negative conditioning, you take something bad away to make them want to do it again. But if we're applying it to deontology here, an active, a positive, an action against is adding something that otherwise wouldn't be there, or taking an action that wouldn't have otherwise taken place if it weren't for your will. And not acting is sort of just letting the null hypothesis rest and letting things play out as if you weren't even a part of the situation.
But in the case of a pregnancy, the woman is unavoidably a part of the situation.
Okay, continue with that thought, because I'm not exactly sure. I don't exactly see what you're getting at.
Right.
Okay, so you were saying like let's say it's not the parent of a child, it's just a bystander. There's a baby there and the baby is going to starve. Does the bystander have any ethical obligation to do so? Well, I would say, of course, it would be great, it would be wonderful, it would be moral if he did that. Ethically, he has no part in that situation, so he would not be obligated to do so. And I think that's the distinction you're making. You're acting as if the inaction is someone separate from the situation, but that can never be the case with the mother and the fetus.
Okay, can I address this?
Well, I'll just say this one final point, and then you can add clarification, Shani. I think you're right. She chose to have the child exist inside her, which does intertwine her in a certain way. But at that point, she consented to the action happening, and so really she just has to sit back and let nature take its course. And
Right.
First of all, you said it also applied in cases of rape, so I don't think you can fall back on that now. Second, it's a lot more. Pregnancy. Ask any woman who's been through it. Even the ones who say it was a good experience still say that it was, a lot of work, they have to eat more, they have a lot of back problems, they might get morning sickness and throw up a lot. It's not just sitting back and waiting and doing nothing.
You're right. It's not sitting back and do nothing.
Right.
That was
Okay,
hyperbolization, but it was still a natural process. And so, I think we've yet to establish that nature is capable of imposing on somebody when it's force without any will.
Okay, so several things. If she chose, for example, not to take the extra work, right? She didn't take her pregnancy vitamins. She didn't eat extra. She didn't do extra steps. That's not a violation because it's just not doing something. It's not doing something. And additionally, her body, you're right. It is her body. So if she can remove it, as long as it doesn't suffer any harm during the transfer from inside to outside her body, that is perfectly valid. It's not an act against the child. It's removing something. Now,
Okay,
mind you,
I think
I'd prefer her not
Shiny,
do that.
I think Shiny, you and I might be a lot closer to each other than we thought. I mean, I
That's
would say
disgusting.
that if it's yeah, sorry, I'm a dirty old man, but I would say that it's if the fetus is capable of surviving outside the womb, then it would be murder to kill it, because you can there are
It's
options. You can put
not
it up for
even
adoption.
about that, though.
But I'm saying from a strict deontological standpoint, if it's 7-week-old fetus or whatever, and there's no way it can survive, and it's more of a, I don't know, none of us are medical doctors, so none of us can say, but if it's a situation where it's a lot easier and less risky on the mother to do what you're calling an abortion, as opposed to doing an intact extraction where it's going to inevitably die anyway, deontologically, I don't see the difference between
There
the
is,
two.
okay, again, let me explain. You have an unconscious man who you brought onto your property. You can remove him from your property as long as he doesn't suffer any harm going from in your property to off your property. But if you harm him while he's unconscious and not there of his own volition on your property, you have now violated him. Whereas just moving him off your property is not a violation.
So the issue is the end result of moving him off your property is going to result in his death, and him staying on your property is not.
It
Right.
doesn't
You
matter
have to
because
take-
once he's
you-
off your
you- oh,
property,
you have to take action against him is the issue. You have to physically remove him, and you, by your own action, you will be responsible for his death.
Just to throw that meme out there.
Yeah, I think you cut out there, Pragmatic. We didn't really know what you were talking about.
Nobody
I was
cares.
just getting into the physical removal meme of Hans Hermann Hoppe, which I felt like LSP sort of inadvertently invoked, but
That ANCAP piece of
just a fan of Hoppe.
Okay, since we're kind of running a bit of a circle here, we keep kind of coming back to the same argument over and over. I think that this is a point where we should maybe start trying to formulate our final statements.
I just bring up something from chat real quick.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to let them take notice of it, I'm not going to any longer. But Brown Bricks wanted me to bring up like the possibility of AI and choice making and things like that. And we could tie it into this conversation in some way, because I kind of get the relevance of will and choice. But just my quick opinion on AI is that AI isn't really going to be artificially intelligent in the way we are, because it's not only does it lack a proper connection with will in the same way we do, but it's just a copy of us. It itself is not, independently making these choices in the same way that we are sort of conditioned by our biology and nature. A spiritual element, the machine is wholly conditioned by us and is only material. There's nothing supernatural about the AI, and so it's not really a choice maker on it.
So I don't get from what you've said before, how do you know that? For example, like Data on Star Trek, the android, you were saying that like with animals, it's because, and I forget the phrase you use. If this isn't the term or phrase you use, I apologize, but basically God didn't put a soul in them. How do you know that God didn't put a soul into Data, or however you would phrase it?
Okay, so this is going off topic, and I'll just say it's philosophically falsifiable. It's not, you're right, it's not materially falsifiable per se. It'd be a matter of philosophy and theology, which would be another conversation, but I understand why the question. It's simply just a matter that it's not materially falsifiable.
This is in the Venn diagram of the conversation. Can you tell me how you like philosophically falsify that?
Sure. You can you make a philosophical case against it, to put it as broadly as possible. Like, I think the process would be something like, you case that, okay, to use, I guess you could try to, I'm trying to formulate an argument against a position I kind of have as the spurious sort of one-off thing, but I guess you could make the case.
Well,
you're
this
saying,
relates
hold on
to
a
the
second.
fetus.
Hold on, you're saying it's potentially falsifiable, not necessarily that it has been falsified, right?
It's hard to speak in complete absolutes when we're talking about philosophy, but I'd say it could be pretty much falsifiable. I could say there's a high, I would say there's a good chance that this is something that could be falsified fairly easily, like with the proper talking about it and stuff like that. Or we're being urged to formulate closing statements. So I'll just say it's like, philosophical falsification is something that's another conversation, but I do think it's something that can be done. Like, I think you can try to falsify Thomas Aquinas's arguments in certain ways, and that's fine. You should. Anti-postmodern in the sense that I think deconstruction is a useful tool for knowledge. You just can't take it too far, which is what the postmodernists do. But this is a good conversation for perhaps another debate. Anybody wants to start with their closing statements?
Okay, so if it wasn't obvious, I was arguing from a deontological ethics standpoint the whole time. And basically, my ending remarks are that you can't blame an innocent for what someone else has done, regardless of how that might impact somebody else. And acting against someone is where you violate their sense of self-ownership. It's not just where you remove them from a property violation. So nature cannot coerce or be responsible for violating someone. And letting nature take its course is not a violation.
Yeah, so it's interesting that I'm also going from a deontological standpoint, but haven't come to the same conclusion. Deontology isn't really about blame, and my approach is a logical approach from first principles, which I won't get into now, but anyone, blatant plug, can watch my video, Libertarianism and Property Rights from First Principles. And when I follow those principles, that's what I keep logically coming to with the things I've said here about, how you judge different actions and try to apply them consistently. So I don't really have a closing statement other than that.
And
Pragmatic?
What about? Oh, I was about to say. Did you want to go LSP?
I can wait on pragmatic,
Okay,
or
sure.
I can go if what.
No,
Pragmatic's
I'll
already
close
done
it,
it,
and I'll
hasn't
let you get.
Wait, did you already go? I thought he was. I thought he.
Oh no,
went
I didn't really have a proper closing statement. So yeah, we'll let LSP get the last word because he was so talked over during this stream.
Oh God, it was awful. So, the issues we had was that we have.
Oh no, wait, no, okay.
Fuck you.
I'm sorry. I was
Shut
gonna
up.
let you have
Shut
the
up.
last
Shut
word.
up. Shut up.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so our issues were that we have different. God damn, you break my train of thought, dude. Our issues, we have different definitions of like key concepts, and I think Shane and I see a woman's bodily autonomy as an extension of private property rights, and you got your whole retort was hippity hoppity. There's no private property. At least you tried to argue that a right to life trumped private property rights. We disagreed. Then your argument was that regardless of the consequences, the act would determine the morality. Again, I disagree. I weight my ethics based on consequences. And if the consequences of your action, if the consequences of your action are all the same, then it doesn't matter the way you get there to me.
I would point out one more thing.
Yeah.
We have in this debate a libertarian on both sides and non-libertarians on both sides. This is a very divisive issue, but it doesn't have to divide us. We need more conversations like what we've had today just among everyone so that hopefully maybe we can, work this out, or, maybe people who are a lot smarter than us can come up with better solutions or
Nobody's
whatever.
smarter than me.
But this is a very divisive situation with reasonable people on all sides. And I think this has been a great debate. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
And pragmatic.
Yeah, real quick. I am certainly, I think, the odd man out here, being a virtue ethicist and someone explicitly religious, even more so than, say, maybe LSP is, as just a consequentialist. But my whole thing is that is the highest value, and that there is, unless the one case we didn't actually get into, which I was surprised at, was that, what if the pregnancy is endangering the woman's life? Which I would say in that case, if the process you need to take to save the woman's life happens to abort the child, because you're still, it's not the disregard of life. It's a pragmatic decision one way or another to save one life or over the other, which, again, you can't do that in math, but you can't fault anybody for making that decision either. So my whole point is that human life takes the highest priority amongst all ethical and relations at all points, unless the consideration is other human life. And so I do think other rights, whatever you may conceive of them to be, do related to that as quintessential moral value of the human being.
All right, is that all the closing statements?
Guess so.
No.
Okay,
Just
so
tell everyone to subscribe to PewDiePie.
Oh yes,
yes, you do.
Yes.
Beat T-Series. One thing I do want to ask, and let's kind of make these a little bit short so we're not dragging on too long, but I asked this a couple of streams ago, but is there anyone here who might have had their mind changed about something? And if so, then maybe briefly discuss it or briefly run down what it was that you had your mind changed on.
No, not really.
Not really, although I would like to see Shiny's full set of deontology if you wrote that up in a blog post or put it in a video or something, and just show how, because I'm still not clear on how you differentiate the
I can
different
do that
actions.
for you later. I
Yeah.
don't really
But
have
it's
any,
not
like,
it's not
social
right now.
media
We gotta
presence.
close it. You can't really do that
Yeah.
in a debate like this, but yeah, I'd love to see that.
So I'd argue that Shane had his mind changed a bit. He just doesn't realize it. Shane, you've come to the consequentialist side. Just embrace it.
I've always been a little bit of a consequentialist, but it's not the prime mover. There's parts of my deontological system that lead to consequentialism in some aspects, but it's not a consequentialist system. It's just you find out certain cases where the consequences matter.
What I'll say about consequentialism is I think most people, if they're honest, end up acting consequentialistly, but I still don't think it's a more valuable system.
You're all heathens. Convert to the one true faith, aka Catholicism, and we must reject this anti-pope. What's his name? I don't remember. But yeah.
Which, speaking of,
the one true religion is the flying spaghetti monster.
That is 100% correct. Also, anime thighs. That's the one true religion.
I just worship my fiance.
That's pretty good, I guess.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of boring.
I totally
but
worship my wife.
I worship my body pillow. Whatever.
I worship my cat.
Okay.
We don't want to know what you do with your body. We don't want to know.
Oh yeah, boy. Let's give another shout out to all the wonderful people who gave Dapperton money. I wish I had some money right now. But we had Jim Jesus, who gave 2 times. We had Excel, Whale Gang. We had John Mosby, Dominic Freeman, our local pregnant attack helicopter, and the Lord himself, Pope Tally, with that big boy 25er. Like, he's probably got the biggest dick in here. I'm sorry, Shane, but he's got the biggest dick.
Oh, he has the Dapperton tapestry up in the bedroom. Yeah.
But I just want to thank everybody for coming and watching the stream and supporting Dapperton, and I want to also thank our debaters here for giving me a little bit of a migraine. Good thing I have BC powder. It'll be all good. But once again, thank you to everybody who's watching and putting up with this. Sometimes a clusterfuck. But it's fun, I like seeing people debate and not want to kill each other by the end. I don't really see that a lot in the debates I get into. If you're not already subscribed to Dapperton, please be sure to subscribe, because we're gonna be doing more of these. I think we're gonna have one probably every week, unless something really comes up to throw us off schedule. So you might want to tune in next week for whatever the hell it's gonna be about. Also be sure to tip your entertainer. Don't let me stress that enough to you. You need to tip your entertainer. Dapperton doesn't do this for fun. He does this for the money. So be sure to send him some love with your money, and maybe subscribe to me too, because
filthy capitalist.
Yeah, filthy capitalism. Be sure to subscribe to me because I am helping pull this thing together. And also be sure to subscribe to anybody in this debate who also has a YouTube channel. I know Shane does. I think, do you have one, Liberal?
It's awful. I would recommend none of you subscribe to me.
All right, then don't subscribe to LSP. What about you, Pragmatic? Any YouTube channel?
Yes, I do have a YouTube channel for anyone interested.
It's awful. I would recommend no one subscribe.
Well, I mean,
it's more of a, I'll admit, it's more of a video diary for my own sanity than it is for like trying to state anything coherent, except the last video, which I put a little bit more work into.
That's okay, because today
there's a little bit higher quality there.
Today I uploaded a video of me literally doing that whole DVD touching the four corners meme, and it was something, I'll tell you that. Also be sure to follow me on TikTok. I make the dankest memes on there. But I guess, well, that's about it. Thank you for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.